if you have mold, you have parasites. And parasites, everybody has parasites, first of all, but if you do not address the parasites and proper cleansing before the mold, you'll just reinfect yourself with the mold when the parasites excrete their poop.
You're listening to the Digest This podcast, and I'm your host, Bethany Cameron. Having mold automatically means you have parasites too? This was something new I learned in today's episode with Jessica Rauscher, who has healed from mold toxicity herself and is now a holistic practitioner helping others do the same. Her experience with parasites and mold led her to now helping countless others through a natural approach and education on what to look for if you think you have mold, how to address it physically, and the mental and emotional aspect no one really talks about when dealing with such illnesses. Sometimes having a diagnosis is harder for our mental state than our physical state. So we talk about both, as well as symptoms of mold, how to get tested both yourself and in your environment, if a vegan or carnivore diet is best when dealing with mold and parasites, plus how to address your employer if you think your work environment is the cause. Jessica offers free first consultations for anyone in the USA, so stay until the very end because she gives out her personal email so you can contact her directly. Jessica, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm excited to talk all things mold.
Me too. Always a good conversation with mold.
You have such an amazing story. And before we even get into that, I want to start my podcast with rapid fire yes or no questions. And you can only answer yes or no. Are you ready?
Man. I don't know. Let's try it. Let's do it, girl.
Okay, there's only 4. Ready? First question. Do most people have mold and not even know it?
Yes.
Is mold curable?
Yes.
Do people that have mold have a hard time absorbing nutrients?
Yes.
Okay, last question. Does mold cause other autoimmune issues, or do other autoimmune issues open the door for mold? I guess that's more of a multiple choice question.
Yeah, I think the answer to both of them is yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like the chicken or the egg, right?
Mm-hmm.
I recently burned my arm when I was cooking with oil, and it splattered right back at me and scorched my arm. It hurt like heck, but I immediately slathered tons of Manuka honey on it. Then I wrapped it up and let it sit for about 5 hours. The very next day, you could barely tell I burned my arm, only to see a few blistered spots of skin. I didn't get infected and it healed right up. I even showed a 24-hour before and after photo on my Instagram, and you guys were amazed. That's the healing power of Manuka honey. It can heal our outer layer of skin, and if it can do that, imagine what it can do to heal our insides, our gut lining, our digestive tract, and fight off infections. The brand I used was Manucora from New Zealand, and this contains 3 times more antioxidants than your typical sweetener, and also contains a special antibacterial compound called MgO. The higher the MgO count, the more of these antibacterial compounds exist in the honey. So it's hard to find honey with this type of MgO above 500, but Manucora guarantees an MgO of at least 850. Drizzle this on top of yogurt, add it to your smoothies, or just spoon some right into your mouth if you have a sore throat. This stuff is nature's healing machine. And now it's easier than ever to try Manucora honey. Just head on over to manucora.com/digest to save $70 on their starter kit, which comes with an 850 MgO Manuka honey jar, 5 honey travel sticks, and a wooden spoon, plus a guidebook. That's manucora.com/digest to save $70 plus $25 worth of free gifts. Go to manucora.com/digest. You guys always see me raving about Fatty 15 on my Instagram, and I've been taking it for about a year now and have even gotten my husband on board. Well, why? Because Fatty 15 is the first supplement ever to help cellular fragility syndrome, which is due to low levels of the essential fatty acid C15. The pure C15 ingredient in Fatty 15 has 26 more cellular benefits than omega-3 and repairs 83% of cell types. As many as 1 in 3 people worldwide may have low C15 levels and cellular fragility syndrome. So if you think your omega fish oil is doing you good, think again and try Fatty 15 for a change. And the icing on the cake is that Fatty 15 is 100% vegan with no burpy fish smell. If you are wanting to stop oxidation in the body and slow down aging, or just looking for a safer alternative to omega fish oil, give Fatty 15 a try just like I did. You can get an additional 15% off their 90-day subscription starter kit by going to fatty15/digest and use code DIGEST at checkout. First of all, why don't you introduce yourself and tell my listeners who you are and what you do?
Awesome. Yeah. So I am Jessica Rauscher. I'm a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And it happened by accident. So I help people get to the root cause of any health disease, diagnosis, or symptom that they have.
You have quite an amazing testimony. And so, how did you get into this space?
That's a very good question. So I was a financial advisor for 18 years. And I had a very successful practice of 700 clients, thought I would retire there. And then my husband got sick and nobody could figure out what was wrong with him. But his diagnosis was sarcoidosis, which is an autoimmune disease of the lungs. And so that sent me down the path of searching because they said he would have it forever and it wasn't curable and they had no idea where it came from. So I searched and found functional medicine, and I had never heard of it at that time. And fast forward, that led me to taking continuing education classes for functional medicine docs. I did that for 3 years, and I came to the conclusion that he had mold and probably Lyme and Lyme co-infections. And right around that same time, I started developing mystery symptoms myself and found my own practitioner. And he's actually the one that encouraged me to go to school to become a practitioner. And, he said, Jess, you know more than a lot of the functional medicine docs that I work with. Why don't you do this? I thought he was crazy because I had this financial planning practice, right? And turns out probably about a month into school, I knew that God was leading me to leave the financial planning business behind because quite frankly, people are sick, dying, and medicated and they don't need to be. So yeah, turns out both of us had mold toxicity from living in mold. We had no idea. And both of us had Lyme and Lyme co-infections.
Okay, so you were living in mold and that's how you got it?
Yep, we had no idea.
Okay, so the mold was not visible, right?
Correct.
And I think that's very common actually to get mold from unseen mold versus the visible kind, because it's like you have no idea and you can be living in it for years.
Yes, 100%.
So I know that there's different ways to have mold. I don't know if you know this, but I actually have mold in my lungs. They found out just actually by an accident. They were doing like some long story short, I think my listeners know the story because I had done a podcast on it back in October of 2024. But I was not feeling well. I went into the ER and they did all the tests, blood work, like all the things, literally. And they're like, well, you're fine. Your blood work, like you're a healthy human being. What's going on? And I was like, I just don't feel right and haven't been for a while. And so they did a chest x-ray. And they were like, oh, you have pneumonia. And I'm like, I'm not coughing. I don't have pneumonia. And so anyways, they did some further research with an MRI and they discovered that there was a ball of mold in my lungs.
Wow.
And they did like more extensive testing for mold because they don't do that when you go into the ER. They don't test for mold in your blood. Anyways, so thankfully it's an encapsulated ball, and I'm currently like going through treatment and going through that process. And I'm sure it's not just a 1 month process and you're cleared. It's a very dragged out thing. But all that to say is I want to know where, if where in your body, in your husband's body, did you have mold? Because it's only in my lungs, which is interesting. Is it all over your body? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, so first and foremost, praise God. I am fully healed from all of the mold. And so I'm right. I don't have symptoms. And I think this is one of the biggest issues why people don't figure out that mold is the issue, is because my husband had the mold in his lungs, and that's what gave him the sarcoidosis. I was affected systemically. So I was dealing with mold colonization in the gut and in the brain.
Mm. And how did they figure that out, and how do you get tested? Because I'm sure everyone wants to know, okay, are there tests to get done? How do I go about this? Can I just go to my, regular doctor, or do I have to go to a specialist?
Yes, great question. So I wish it was easy and you could go to your doctor. And the downside to that with Western medicine is there's no diagnostic code, otherwise known as an ICD-10 code for mold. And so unfortunately, it's not the doctor's fault. It's just not in their toolbox. So a functional practitioner would be able to do that. Like I said, I had to figure it out myself. So I help clients with this daily. But one of my favorite for the mold colonization as a general systemic issue is to look at an organic acids test. That will give us an idea of really knowing. It's a urine test, and it will allow us to know if there is colonization, because if there is, even if you're out of the mold, it's still producing mycotoxins inside of the body, which are a whole separate entity from the mold itself. So people have exposure that's still happening because of the colonization inside of the body. So that's one of my favorite tests. The neural zoomer is really good. That's a blood test. And it's exactly what it sounds like. That's giving us a good picture at what's happening inside of the brain.
Neurozoomer?
Yep, neural zoomer.
Okay. And I know that you have to typically pay out of pocket because these are things that are not covered mostly by insurance, unfortunately.
Mhm.
How much are these? Because I know I've done them myself, but there's different places, What's the range?
Yeah. So I would say 500 to 1,000.
Yeah, that sounds
And
about right.
a lot of times, like I'm able to accept health savings accounts and flexible spending accounts for my clients. So that makes, if they have those with their insurance, that's helpful because, while it's still their dollars, it's not coming out of their monthly cash flow and income.
Okay, that's good to know because I know a lot of people, they want to know, they want to get tested, but man, finances are tight. So it's so hard for people. Now,
Yeah.
how long did it take you to heal from mold and cleanse it from your body?
Well, I think I'm a bad example. And I say that because I figured it out by trial and error before I really did the classes. So I think one of the reasons why I'm so equipped is because I spent thousands of dollars doing it the wrong way and did it for a lot of years. And so I would say for me, the process was 3 years. But I think now that I've done it the wrong way and I have the education and quite frankly, the help from God. I would say on average, I would say a 6 to 12 month process for people. And again, that depends on how committed they are, right? People say
Right.
to me, Jess, how long is it going to take me to heal? And I tell them, like, look, this is your healing journey. You're going to get out of it what you put into it. If you're real serious about it, we can get you there a lot quicker than if we can't. And I think a big piece of it that's missing is what they believe.
I think, yeah. And I think it's very different for every person. Like you said, how committed they are,
Mm.
what protocol they're doing, and also how bad the mold was to begin with is, I think, a huge factor because that is, it's kind of like someone wanting to lose weight. Is like, well, how fast can I lose the weight? Well, how committed are you? How much weight do you want to lose it to begin with? It's kind of individualized.
Yes, 100%.
Now, I want to talk about the common mold symptoms because it's very hard because every single person has different symptoms. So how can you really know?
Yeah, well, one of the things that I tell people is pay attention to environmental factors. So if you work in a certain place, obviously you live and sleep in a certain place. How do you feel when you're in those places comparatively to when you're not? The other thing that I tell people to look at that is overlooked a lot is how is your pet doing? Because the pet is in the house all the time. And they can give us clues a lot of the times before we realize something is really going on in the body. So I would say those. And then the other thing is there's I'm like a mold dog. My friends are always like, come with me and look, I'm looking at renting a place. Come and tell me if there's hidden mold because I figured it out up to this point. But I would say check the environment first. So if you're looking at your workplace and you're looking at your home, is there cracking, bubbling paint? Are there water stains? Does it have a strange smell? And strange doesn't mean just musty, right? It could just be a weird smell that you can't really put your finger to. So I tell people that first. And then as far as how they experience it themselves, I'll give you some common ones, but when I tell you, I have some clients that just present with neurological and they deal with anxiety and depression, but have no other physical symptoms or complaints in their body. So it's really hard to say what you see. And that's part of the reason why a lot of my clients say to me, Jess, like my family gaslights me because they say, well, if I think that I have mold, well, then why is my spouse okay? Why are the kids okay? Why am I the only one that's dealing with it? And we're all, bio unique. We're all bio individual. How our immune system deals with a burden like that is going to vary. So it's really hard to say, but chronic sinus issues, that's a big one. Asthma, that's a big one. The asthma is almost always tied to mold. And constipation, believe it or not. Many times people have that mold that starts to colonize in the stomach and that stops the bile flow, that halts detoxification. And then they're wondering, why can't I have a normal bowel movement?
Yeah, I've heard of a lot of people having digestive issues from mold. Like you said, sinus issues, runny noses. Even I heard constant peeing
Yes.
was, could be something. Low libido. I mean, you can go down skin rashes or irritation. That's more like visible, right?
Yep.
Insomnia, trouble sleeping. And I'm going down this list and it's like, again, so random because you
Mhm.
could you could also have these symptoms and not have mold.
Yeah, you're right. That's very, very true.
Um, and I think too, I heard of, so for me, I wasn't actually living in mold. At least I have no idea how long I've actually had this. It was just discovered again by accident. But the previous home I was in, we didn't have mold in that, nor do we have one in the current home. But we still don't know how I got it. I think it's from, it's a long story. I think it was from me just maybe staying in my parents' home. But a lot of people you had brought up, and I thank you for bringing this up, is because we're like, well, how come my parents aren't having issues? Or maybe they are and they just don't know it because everyone is individualized. So you can't just say, well, how come so and so is fine and they live in the same house and you got it? And it's kind of like judgmental.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I mean, a lot of the issues that my clients deal with is the emotional side because of exactly what you just said inside of the home. So I see that often, and it's a tough thing, right? I mean, they're trying to advocate for themselves from a physical standpoint, but yet they have that emotional piece to it too. So it does add another layer, and that adds it more that makes it more difficult.
Yeah, and I think it's very hard. You bring up again an emotional piece that a lot of people, I think when they talk about mold, they don't really address, and it's very hard emotionally. And you could not be living in mold and still have it. And here's an example. And this is, again, why I'm wondering if maybe this is how I got it. But I know of a woman that she got mold in her lungs, and she got it from raking leaves in her backyard because the leaves were musty and had mold. And, when you rake leaves, things come up in the air. And that's how she got it.
Yeah. Yep. You have common occurrences like that happen for people. And if that happens, my question as a practitioner is, what was really going on in the immune system where the body couldn't deal with that? Because our bodies, God designed them for us to heal. And so where is the breakdown where an acute exposure like that is too much for the body to handle? So I always say, and I have really a rule of three, when you have one issue, there's usually two more. And so that's my job when people come to me. I'm like, okay, let's see where's the breakdown here outside of just your body couldn't deal with this acute mold exposure.
Yeah, I think when I had asked you at the beginning, does mold cause other autoimmune issues, or do other autoimmune issues open the door for mold? And if your immune system is already weakened and then you're exposed to mold, you may get it and the other person doesn't, even though you're living in the same home.
Yes. Yeah. And I think part of the issue is our world is so toxic, and our food is stripped of nutrition. And even if you're somebody that eats a very, very clean diet, I just did a class where they were talking about 5 years ago or 40 years ago, if you ate one apple, you would need to eat five now to get the same amount of nutrition. And so when you strip back health and look at it at a very foundational level, a cellular level, well, the cells can't do their job because they don't have the energy in the form of their vitamins and the minerals that they need to be able to produce energy to take care of all of these things.
You hit the nail on the head, Jessica. And you could even be completely fine, but you're completely stressed. And you know how stress affects your immune system. And you could just not be in the right place at the right time and in your stress, and boom, you get hit.
Yes. And I will tell you, I see a lot of people say to me, Jess, I'm not stressed. And what I want to say to the people listening is, number one, your body will develop more stress receptors so that you don't even know that you're actually stressed anymore. And number two, when let me just give you an example, because our world is so go 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 that people don't really understand how the body perceives stress, right? We wake up a little bit late, we sleep past our alarm, we get the kids ready to leave, we feed them, and then we barely have time to make our breakfast, but we do, and then we find ourselves in the car on the way to work eating breakfast. And the body is saying, wait a second, you want us to pump cortisol and go do the day. We can't be in the parasympathetic nervous system and digest this food that we're eating right now. And that is stressful on the body. So people don't realize that the no time off, the world says like, hey, go, 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 no time off, boss girl, boss babe, boss man, boss, right? No, you have to give your body a break.
Yes, and I think it's really praised these days. If you can do more, like good for you, and it's kind of looked down upon about just resting or like being a stay-at-home mom. Because let me tell you, that is 10 times more work because it's a nonstop. You don't get a break.
Yeah.
So I think the world really praises people for the go-getters, and I'm not saying that's a wrong thing, but we need to remember that our bodies can't take a constant state of stress. And like you said, a lot of people don't even realize it, myself included. When you're stressed for years, you don't know any different.
Yes, exactly. So listeners, let this be your sign that you do not need permission to take a break. In fact, your body has probably been asking you to take one for years.
Yes. I want to get into some mold detoxing healing herbs and supplements and protocols. But before I even do that, let's say someone doesn't have mold in their home, but they know that their work environment has mold. How does someone address their employer because of their work environment? And does this become a legal issue?
That is such a tangled ball of spider webs, the answer to that question, because the real root of the issue is there is no diagnostic code for mold toxicity. And so that allows employers to have no real issue, because if somebody goes into the doctor's office, and by the way, this was part of my story when I was trying to be approved for disability, was that they wouldn't approve my disability because there was no code for mold. But they said, well, you have anxiety and depression. There's a diagnostic code for that. So that's what they slapped on me, even though it was caused from the mold. So my advice to people, if they have mold in their workplace, would be to find an attorney that specializes in mold. They exist out there, and they would be state by state, and share that case with the attorney. The second thing is, most of the time there has to be a medical issue where it's proven that it's tied to mold. And that can be challenging to do as well because of what I just mentioned. So the biggest thing is that I would say is advocate for yourself. Go to the employer and tell them what you're experiencing from living in the work environment, and maybe bring some studies. One of the total toxic burden tests is one of my favorite. It's a urine test. It shows if there's mycotoxins that are coming out in the urine metabolites. They could do that test and bring it to the owner, or they could also test the environment themselves with an ERMI.
Okay, because I think the testing the environment would be key, because I'm thinking, let's just say you brought your labs to your employer. How are they're going to be like, oh, well, that's from your home. How do you know it's from here? You know what I mean?
Yes.
They'd be like, oh, well, that's just your home. Or maybe even go to a coworker and get a bunch of coworkers and say, hey, do you have these symptoms too? Because if you do, then we have more of an argument here.
Yes. And I think the education piece with the coworkers about, hey, pay attention. How do you feel when you're outside of your work? Do you feel better? Because so many of them probably don't even know. They don't even know that they have symptoms from it, like you said. So yeah, ideally a finances permit, do an ERMI. And there's better tests that are more in depth than an ERMI, but the ERMI is usually around 250, and you could do that. And then if you do one of the urine tests on yourself, and you could see, do the molds match from my urine? Do they match from what's in the workplace?
Okay. And I know there's like dog sniffers, like mold dog sniffers,
Yes,
right?
that's true. And they work well. I've never used one, but I've heard really good stories.
Okay, cool. So there are options there. Now, what are some mold detox healing herbs? I know of a few, but I'm curious to know your thoughts.
Yeah. So, I mean, and I even want to say this before I address the mold healing herbs. One of the things that I think is very important for people to know, and I don't know that we would have touched on this unless I said it now, which is why I'm going to. If you have mold, you have parasites. And parasites, everybody has parasites, first of all, but if you do not address the parasites and proper cleansing before the mold, you'll just reinfect yourself with the mold when the parasites excrete their poop. So I just want to make sure that, that was said.
Hey guys, I want to give every one of you a gift, so listen up. Many of you know that I created my own digestive support protein powder designed to aid in gut health and specifically formulated for those with sensitive tummies. I created this back in 2018, and since then, it's helped thousands of you with digestive issues and given relief. All that positive feedback has encouraged me to expand the Bethany's Pantry line with 3 different flavors, a protein bake, and L-glutamine powder to help heal and seal the gut lining. So as a thank you for being a podcast listener, I want to give you $10 off anything from my digestive support line. You can use this $10 discount on any flavor of protein, protein bake, or digestive aid such as L-glutamine. The one-time code podcast10 will give you $10 off. Whether you're a regular consumer or have never tried but wanted to, anyone can use this code one time as a gift from me. Oh, and a little side note, because we source our pea protein from Europe, I can assure you it's not sprayed with glyphosate because it's actually illegal in Europe to spray pea crops with such chemicals. Europe's standards and regulations on growing crops are far superior than American standards, and that's why I am proud to use such a source for my clean, easy to digest, lectin-free protein powder. Go to bethanysPantry.com, which is our new website, and use the code podcast10 for $10 off anything. Again, bethanysPantry.com, and then go and use the podcast 10 code and you'll get $10 off. Okay, you just like blew my mind because I recently just did a parasite cleanse and I'm on a break right now because it was intense and I definitely passed some.
Okay.
So, but it was like, you have to do it for a long time to get like the eggs and all of that grossness. But it was intense. So you definitely need to like take a break. Otherwise I would not be functioning right now. So let's just talk about the parasites first. So a parasite cleanse would be ideal prior to addressing the mold, or should you be doing it all at once?
That answer is case by case. I have some clients that it would be way too intense for them to do both.
Okay.
So go ahead.
So why do people that have mold have parasites? Like, what's the reason?
Yeah, so this is really an interesting answer. So the first thing people need to understand is we live symbiotically with parasites. They're there, they will always be there. We'll never fully rid them from our body. The issue is when they overgrow. And when our bodies become toxic, that's when they become the good host for the parasites. So heavy metals, mold, infections, bacteria, fungus, right? So the parasite, believe it or not, actually helps us in this scenario. And here's what I mean. Mold loves fat soluble organs. It loves fat soluble tissue. So the mold, if it had its way, it's going to go live in that fat soluble brain. So the parasites actually come and eat the mold so that the mold isn't going to go inside of our tissues. And this is actually, by the way, and I know we're not talking about this, but it's important because so many women that come to me are like, Jess, I have weight loss resistance. I've tried everything. And no matter what, I can't figure it out. That is the innate response of the body, because if the body holds on to fat and the body it keeps packing on the pounds, well, now the mold is going to live in the fat tissue instead of the brain. So the body will keep holding it and holding it and holding it because it's trying to survive. And so women, men, love your body when it does that. It's trying to survive. But to answer your question, the mold, the parasite eats it. Now, the issue is if you do the mold cleanse first, well, you're going to feel better temporarily. But now when the parasite excretes its waste, there's mold in the waste. And now the mold is back in the body again. So go ahead.
I'm trying to think about it in my mind, because I feel like if you get rid of the mold first, then wouldn't the parasites starve because they don't have mold to eat, or they just start eating other things that you're eating?
They'll eat your
obviously.
nutrients. Yes.
They'll eat your nutrients.
They'll eat your food. Yep.
So you do need to get rid of the parasites first
Yes.
and then address the mold.
Yep. And like you asked earlier, some people can truly do both. Some people can do both at the same time. And a lot of the times they'll start with just the parasite cleansing and start to microdose some things for the mold. But for the most part, especially if people have never done a parasite cleanse, you need to do it first. I mean, my testimony with parasites, my GI map was negative, and I passed them for 6 months straight. I had them coming out of my menstrual cycle. I had them coming out of my bowel movements. I coughed a couple of them up. Yeah.
My mouth is open wide right now. I know you guys can't see it, but I'm like a little 5-year-old that just like saw an alien or something. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yes.
Okay. So are there any herbs or supplements that can actually get rid of both at the same time?
Yes. So everybody asks me all the time, Jess, what protocol do you use? And I first just want to say to the people listening, there are so many, and I don't put everybody on just the same protocol. Okay. But here's what I have found. Our body can heal itself when you give it the right resources. What does our body, and you know this, Bethany, you talk about this all the time. What does our body do best with? Food. And so the question is, how can we give our body the resources that it needs in the form of food, where because the body now has what it needs, it can start to push some of these things out on its own. And so I have done all the wrong things, and I found what I like the best. Okay. So my favorite to start addressing mold is actually the ULT. It stands for Ultimate Lifestyle Transformation. It's a 90-day program from Purium. And I like it because it does a couple of things. And even before I explain this, I want to say one thing. So one of the biggest issues with detoxifying anything is the body needs way more resources and blows through those resources faster because of detoxification. So if you needed, let's say, I'm going to speak in layman's terms real quick, but let's say that you needed 10 units of vitamin C to operate your normal life. Now you're detoxifying, you might need 100. And so people push themselves through this detoxification, overlooking the fact that at a very foundational level, their body needs the proper nutrition, and they would be surprised at what their body will do on its own.
Okay. I'm writing this down. So go ahead. So ULT from what
Purium.
company?
Purium.
Okay.
Yeah. I sent you a message. I want to ship you a box of it.
Oh, you're so sweet.
Yeah. Because I'll tell you what, it was actually a prayer, because I was so frustrated as a practitioner that I had so many people coming to me that could not afford testing, like we talked about. And one of my prayers was, and a lot of people that come to me for mold, probably 70% of the people that I see. And I said, Lord, I need something that I can give people that's safe without testing. And that's when I learned about this ULT about a week later from another practitioner. And she said, Jess, it's got a 60-day money back guarantee. And that blew my mind. You don't find that in the functional medicine space anywhere. And I said, I have to try this. So I've actually been doing it for 4 months.
What is it? Like, are they tinctures? What's in what's the protocol? Yeah.
Yep. So it focuses on organic-based nutrition. The company does regenerative farming. Okay. They water their crops with spring water and treat their soil for glyphosate. So the cleanliness of the stuff that I'm going to talk about is not comparable to anything that I have found in any supplement line anywhere. So in the morning, what people do is they do a superfood shake. This superfood shake is bioavailable because it's in the form of powder. So the nutrition label, you'll see when I send it to you, is out of this world. It actually can replace all supplementation for most people. And so it's the equivalent of eating 6 superfood salads. So they have that, and then it's paired with amino acids that do not have to go through digestion. So for people that have a disrupted microbiome that can't get the nutrients from meat or from the plants, they don't have to worry about it. The aminos are absorbed into the blood systemically in the system within 23 minutes. So that's part of the morning. And then there's something that it's a gut and colon cleanser that's clinically proven to remove glyphosate from the body up to 75% in 6 weeks. So that will start to address mold colonization in the gut too. So that's their morning. Their afternoon, they do the shake again with the aminos. And then at night, they have another gut and colon cleanser with some tart cherry juice. The tart cherry juice will be for, it has naturally occurring melatonin. It's going to help them sleep and be a backup antioxidant to the body. And then they'll do the gut and colon cleanse again. And then in the first 2 months, there's a parasite cleanse included.
Wow. Okay. So I do a shake twice a day now. Already. So I'm really curious to know what, is in this shake, because I think it's really important just because my gut has been like a wreck since the mold and like the parasites. And like I have my good days and bad days where I can like eat other things, but I want to feel my best. And so the shakes and the smoothies that I make have really been helping. I know a lot of people don't really think about biofilms when they think about parasites, and then also binders. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So I think whenever you address anything with detoxification, you have to address biofilms, because biofilms are their own network, like a spider web that blocks the kill agents that are trying to just come into the body. So you need something that's specific for a biofilm breaking. A natural food to do that is pineapple. It has naturally occurring bromelain, and that's what disrupts the biofilm. So this is important for people to know. If you're going to, do these cleanses, you have to change your kill agents for both biofilms and the parasites, because they're both stealthy and they'll adapt and it won't work anymore.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people overlook, is that biofilms, you could be doing all the right things, taking all the right tinctures, doing red light, sauna, blah, blah, blah. But if you still have those biofilms, what you're taking in is not going to reach and kill what you're trying to kill. And then also with the binders, because this is, again, a lot of people don't realize that the binders help eliminate these things. Just because you have like quote killed them or something, they're still kind of like floating around in your body. And I think that personally, I think binders are key. But what do you think? And if you do recommend binders, what are the best ones?
Yeah. So, I think a couple of things that you need to keep in mind. So for those that don't know what a binder is, essentially it acts as a mop. And when you pull these things out of your tissues for detoxification, the binder comes in, mops it out, mops it up, makes it easier for you to excrete through your bowel movements. So one of my favorite binders on the market is from Cellcore Biosciences. Have you heard of that, Bethany?
Yes.
Yeah, so one of the reasons I like their products are because they use a bioactive carbon that has small chain carbons. And I'll try not to get into the weeds too much on this unless you ask specific questions, but they have the ability to leave the gut and get inside of cells and also cross the blood-brain barrier. And so for people that have colonization in the brain or systemically, you need something like that versus a bentonite clay or an activated charcoal, because those ones cannot leave the gut. They can only address the things that are in the gut.
Okay. And with this specific binder, do you have to take it away from supplements like
You do
the
not.
activated charcoal?
Nope.
That's also a plus because a lot of people, they
Mhm.
have to wait a while. And so not needing to wait to take these binders from the cell core is really great.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I want to talk about diet because I've heard some conflicting narratives when you're dealing with mold and parasites. So I've heard that if you're doing a parasite cleanse, you should eliminate meat and go more like plant-based. And then I've heard if you have mold, you should do carnivore. So it's like, well, you can't do both. So do you have any recommendations or what have you seen that works the best?
Yeah, so that's like the burning question for most people. Why does one diet work better for another, right? Why does keto work good for me, but it doesn't for another? And this comes down to a cellular level once again. How fast or slow do people burn through their fuel? And that matters because if they burn through their fuel fast, then they need to eat slow burning fuel to balance. And so you wouldn't know that unless you do a test. And one of the best ways to do that is through a hair tissue mineral test. So I obviously prefer that when people come to me, they have the ability to do that test. But if they don't, one of the things that I teach people to do is really be aware of how their body is responding to the food they give it. How do you feel 60 to 90 minutes after you eat? You should not feel sluggish. You should not feel tired. You should feel energized because that's what food is meant to do. And so, to answer you directly, if I had a client that wasn't paying for testing, I would say, because both schools of thoughts are right, I would say, okay, let's try doing maybe carnivore. Let's see how your body responds to this approach. And after, you have to give your body probably, I would say, at least 2 weeks to see how it's responding to it. And if it's not well, then we would switch the approach that we use.
Okay. Yeah. And I love that you do everything individualized because health is not a one size fits all, and we're all different and unique. And I even go through phases where I can be, oh, well, not completely vegan, but I cannot eat meat for a while. I still have like Greek yogurt or, eggs or whatever. And there's some weeks where I'm like, I literally need animal protein, like I need meat. And
Mhm.
so it fluctuates. And I think maybe it has to do with my cycle. And so, specific for women, I think it's really hard because our hormones are changing all of the time.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. And your body will send you clues. When you have a craving like that for actual food, I'm not talking about things we shouldn't eat. There's a reason that your body is sending you that clue. And our body does that with everything. And a lot of times people get frustrated at symptoms. Why do I have a headache? Why am I bloated? I try to change their perspective by saying that symptom is a clue. Let's figure out what that means for your body so that instead of you being annoyed it's happening, you're putting the puzzle pieces together to figure out what the body needs.
Yeah, no, I love it. What are some common nutrient deficiencies when dealing with mold?
Well, I would say the main macro minerals. So everybody's, and I'll go through those in a second here, but everybody has a stress response. When we're stressed, we blow through our main macro minerals faster than we normally would. So you're looking at magnesium, potassium, sodium, and calcium. Calcium. Those four, I would say, are at the top of the list, and selenium too.
Okay, well, the potassium, sodium, and magnesium, those are all electrolytes right there. So I'm assuming everyone needs to be taking electrolytes when they are dealing with this kind of thing, correct?
Yeah, and I would say the main issue that I see as a general statement with electrolyte products is they typically are lacking in potassium comparatively to the sodium or magnesium. And it's tough because to get the right amount of potassium, you need 4,700 milligrams a day. That is so hard to get. And so coconut water, that is if you're dealing with a mold issue, that should be one of your best friends. One serving of coconut water is anywhere from 400 to 600 milligrams. That's 10% of your daily need. If you do that twice a day, boom, you have 20% just right there.
Amazing. And just maybe if I could add to that, those white potatoes, not the russet, but the yellow or the white potatoes, they have, I don't know how many, 10 times more potassium than a banana. And I think people think potatoes are just, empty calories, but they have a lot of different nutrients in them.
Yes, that's true.
Should someone with mold be concerned about sugar in fruit? No, I'm not talking about processed, but just fruit sugar.
Well, I think one of the things that is important to know is, are they dealing with blood sugar dysregulation? Are they dealing with insulin resistance? Are they dealing with pre-diabetes or diabetes? If so, the people in that category, I would say they should focus on low glycemic fruit.
Okay, like berries and things like that.
Yep.
Okay.
Otherwise, I don't think that it's an issue, but as a general statement, you should pair your fruit with a protein or with a fat so that you don't spike your blood sugar.
Very good point. Yes. Now, do you offer complimentary initial consultations?
Yes.
Okay. And if someone wanted to reach you, how would they do so?
Yeah, so I would say one of two ways. Well, one of three. They can either follow me on Facebook. So I'm under Jessica Rauscher there. They can send me a direct message. My Instagram is Healing Happens with a Z and an underscore. They can message me there. And I have scheduling links in both of those. And if they would prefer, they're welcome to send me an email as well. And that's rootshealing2023@gmail.com.
Amazing. Thank you, Jessica. I'll be sure to put those links in today's show notes. So for those listening, you can just go to today's show notes and check that out with one easy tap and find Jessica there. Jessica, is there anything else you want to add before we close?
The last thing that I would say, and this goes for more than just mold, is do you believe that you can heal? Because your body hears you. The mitochondria in your body are responsible for interpreting your internal and external environment. And if you've been through the ringer with everything and you're trying a new thing and you're saying to yourself, well, this isn't going to work, it's just going to be like everything else, I want to say to you, you are right. And that is why the placebo effect works, right? You think you're getting the healing treatment, but you're not. It's because your cells think they're about to receive healing. So change your perspective and change your life.
I love that. Yes, it all starts in the mind because you have to believe. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So thank you for adding that, Jessica.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Digest This. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review in your podcast app to let us know. If you're ever wondering how you can support me and this podcast, sharing it with your friends and family is the best way. This is a Wellness Loud production produced by Drake Peterson and edited by Mike Fry. To check out more shows by my team, go to wellnessloud.com, and to email the show, message us at digestthispod@gmail.com. See you next time. The content of this show is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not a substitute for individual medical and mental health advice and does not constitute a provider-patient relationship. As always, talk to your doctor or health team first.
Are you ready to rock middle age? I'm Dr. Tina Moore, Gen X truth teller and holistic physician. On the Dr. Tina Show, one of Apple Podcast's top alternative health shows, I share what actually works for metabolic health, hormones, and strength, backed by decades of clinical results, not trends. From loving the gym and hitting your protein goals to peptides and microdosing GLP-1s, it's all done the right way, not the hype way. Because menopause doesn't have to suck if you're fit. New episodes every Thursday, produced by Drake Peterson and Wellness Loud.